I'm not going to pretend like I'm a professional writer with a dozen successful novels floating around local bookstores and 40 years of editors and revised drafts under my belt. But as a novice writer, there's a few things I've picked up on and a couple strategies for writing that work for me. First thing to decide is your starting point. It can be hard to start writing from some faint blip in your head, believe me, I know, so it helps to focus on one portion of the story first, and the rest will come along with it. After I get my inspiration, I normally start at one of 3 points: characters, world building, or plot. Which one normally depends on my initial inspiration or my goal for the story, like something in particular I want to write about. Characters as a starting point. Starting with characters can actually make the plot portion of your story slightly easier. Often main characters are directly linked to the plot. You've got chosen ones, one half of a romance, someone with personal problems. It can be a goldmine. Developing characters' personalities and backgrounds can also give you more subplots. A story that only focuses on the plot can end up pretty boring because the characters are the ones we get attached to, and they're often the ones driving the story. That being said, if you can write a story without subplots or major focus on characters, go for it, nothing's stopping you. But if you want more layers to your story, divulging a character's backstory, exploring friendships, and even the classical character A likes character B are great ways to make your story more compelling. But, like anything, we can hit a wall sometimes. Sometimes writing characters is just hard. You're making up a whole new person. It makes sense there might be a lot of revision along the way. Something I always found useful was building characters around a set of core traits. For example, we have one character who will be optimistic and funny, another who will be gloomy and secretive, and one more who is logically and scientifically motivated. Just hearing those traits, characters start to form in your mind. Already your gears are turning and you're thinking of all sorts of possibilities. What relationship do these characters have? Did they know each other prior? How do they interact with the story and each other? That last one can lead you into writing a larger plot. Another strategy is basing them off real people. Part of the reason we get attached to characters is because we relate to or sympathize with them in some way. They feel like they could be someone we know, or that they could even be us. Something I heard once was that when writing, you should break yourself into little pieces and put one piece into every one of your characters. This is largely true. Bear in mind, don't dish out the same pieces in every story. You should vary what kinds of characters you put in your writing if you write multiple things. And make sure they line up with the plot and world you build around them. But using yourself or other people, friends, family, or strangers can help you build a character and eventually build a story. Now comes the world building starting point. If you don't know what world building is, that's basically just a fancy term for things like the rules of magic in your story or what types of creatures exist. Part of the world building of Percy Jackson is that the Greek pantheon of gods is real, they're hanging out on Olympus above New York, and their demigod children can have abilities A, B, or C. It's the world your story takes place in, but it's more than just setting. World building doesn't have to be super intricate, but it's a nice touch to a lot of stories, especially those aimed at older audiences who can take more in and want to see deeper stories. Anyway, if you want to start with world building, think about it in pieces. First, consider what you want in the story. Dragons, robots, fairies, humans, whatever. This also applies to physical landscapes and weather. Mountains, rivers, oceans, caverns, grasslands, cities, planets. Next, what would go with those other aspects? If you have robots, you are probably going to have whoever built them if they're man-made. If you have princesses, you're going to have the kingdoms they live in. If you have abandoned cities, you're going to have who built those cities, or records of them or their descendants. After that, consider how the world is affected by the presence of the details you have. If there's dragons living around people, the people will interact with the dragons in a specific way. Are they allies? Are they enemies? How do they defend against or protect each other? If there's a primarily desert biome, how do people and animals find water? Do they even need water? If there's many islands around, how do you island hop? The rest can either be filled in with plot, an online generator, or ideas from whoever you feel like talking to about this story. Try Tumblr and fantasy generators. Look at your old science and history notes. That's always an interesting starting point. The aspects that make up your world, from landscape to the creatures who live there, will in all likelihood contribute to plot. And they can in various ways, major or minor. They can also help form your cast through the relationships between different species, what species lives where and has what culture, and many other details that I don't have enough time to explain here. I'll make more episodes going into depth on world building in all its forms. And finally, the big one, plot starting point. Plot as a starting point is, to be blunt, hit or miss. Either you think of something or you don't, and that can be really frustrating. But never fear, we're going to talk about some starting points right here. I didn't intend for that to rhyme. One of the easiest strategies, absorb media. Read books, both fiction and nonfiction. Watch TV and movies, historical, fictional, informational, whatever. A majority of the stories I've written started from a movie, TV show, book, or song that I really liked. Eventually, I developed it enough and changed it to be what I wanted, a story I loved that was also different from its initial inspiration. You can look at fandoms or fanfic tags, use prompt generators. There's plenty of Twitter and Tumblr accounts that have hundreds of prompts falling under various categories. The internet is a goldmine for plot ideas these days. If you're stricter about how much time you spend in front of a screen or buried in a library, here's a similar strategy. Use your own personal experiences. The most interesting stories we have are our own life experiences. We don't live in fantastical worlds with magic and dragons, or on massive spaceships hurtling through space, but we go to school, we take walks, we have weird misadventures with pretty much everything. Ask the internet for other people's stories, maybe that'll give you some good ideas. Even if it isn't your main plot, these can act as subplots in a more fictional setting, or a high school drama. A final method is to start with a very basic, bare-bones sequence of events. The hero's journey is an example of one of these bare-bones sequences. It's a 12-step story template where a hero goes on an adventure, learns a lesson, wins with newfound knowledge, and then returns home changed by their experiences. Tropes and different genres often have stock episodes, which can also serve as building blocks for plot. Honestly, you could throw a bunch of tropes in a pot, mix them together, and throw out a story. Then all you have to do is build it up and fill in the spaces. And if at first you don't succeed, try again. Now, as easy as all those explanations I just gave can sound, in practice they're a lot harder. Let me share some personal experience here. I can have characters I love, an interesting and engaging world with amazing characters and supporting cast members, but no plot. And I mean, no plot. I have a vague idea for the main plot, a couple scene ideas, and a character relationships all scribbled on a page. Plot can be ridiculously hard to think of, whether as a starting point or when you've got everything else prepped and ready for a little chaos. I asked a couple people how they thought of plot and racked my own brain for ideas, and here's some general ways to get started. Think about plot points and scenes you enjoyed in books, movies, TV shows, video games, even song lyrics. Everything I just said for it as a starting point. Think about what genre you're going for, what plots and themes typically appear in that genre. Pull something out of the past, show the consequences of someone's actions, and bring back a minor or mid-level antagonist we've already encountered. Give it a twist, reveal a large-scale secret about a character, destroy a city or two, make a villain sympathetic or have them actually be undercover. Destroy something the characters have been searching for or needed. Pick your favorite part of your world or character and build a plot around it. Pick your least favorite part of your world or character and build a plot around it. The biggest thing is making sure your plot fits. Just like any other type of writing, there's a general line you should stick to. Don't jump around too much and make the story incoherent unless that's precisely what you're going for. Whether your series is more episodic or a series-long arc, there should be some kind of link between everything. Of course, that's just my thoughts on the matter. You can jump around like the Easter Bunny in March if you really want to. I'm not stopping you. Now, of course, as with anything, there are going to be some drawbacks to writing and showing anybody anything, really. Art and literature can be especially challenging. But remember that one person's opinion isn't automatically everyone's opinion. One person's trash is another's treasure. But while I'm on this, let's mention a few things. First of all, if somebody tells you your story isn't original, tell them how many versions of Cinderella exist. There's at least 11 I've found. The fact is, there aren't any truly original stories anymore, and that is in no way meant to discourage you from writing. Write whatever your little heart desires, but do make an effort to make it different from whatever else exists. Make it your own. If you want to write a story about space robots, you are welcome to, but don't copy-paste the Transformers franchise. If you want to write a story about two star-crossed lovers, be my guest, but give it your own little spin. Don't default to every Disney princess or high school romance. First drafts are always going to need work. In all likelihood, so will second, third, and fourth drafts. Fitzgerald, a very famous writer from the 1920s and 30s, spent days and weeks on single chapters of his novels, and he was recognized for how well written his novels ended up. Don't write one chapter, read it a month later, decide it's bad, and give up completely. Work on it. Ask the internet how many different drafts there are of some of your favorite novels. It's probably not a one-digit number, or at least not a small one. I can tell you now, I have deleted entire files and rewritten everything that was in them because I reread it and said, nope. I'm telling you now, if you write or publish anything, whether it be a short story, novel, or movie franchise, there is no pleasing everyone. Accept that now and it'll be easier down the road. There's no way to write anything that everyone will like and that won't insult at least one person. Now, obviously the goal is to not insult most people. Don't be racist, kiddies. But fear of rejection and making someone else angry should not stop you from writing whatever story you want. If one of your test readers doesn't like a story detail, but you think it's really great, keep it. Especially if even someone likes it a little, including you. Your opinion about your story matters. If you want to publish something, to be safe, always get a sensitivity reader if you have something you're not sure might be insulting, and a couple more test readers. I run a lot of stories about my sister, and I'm pretty sure she's annoyed with that, and the fact that I'll be sending her these recordings as I do them. Anyway, that's pretty much it. If you're still here, I applaud you for tolerating my high voice and big mouth.